1, 2, 3, and Jai Jagannatha. And now this is the new experiment for the video recording. I hope it goes okay. And the discussion today, I would like to elaborate on the concept of religion. Now, many people say that Hinduism is not a religion. The problem here is a dictionary problem. Because not only in India, but at global level, and also in India, unfortunately, the Abrahamic dictionary has become popularly considered the standard meanings of the words. So, like for example, the word idol. Okay, so now we will say, oh, idol is an English word. We should use vigraha or murti. Yes, I totally agree. But there is another English word that is used for sacred images that are not Hindus, that are Abrahamic sacred images, and they're called sacred images or deity. So it's still English. Now, in the English dictionary, the word idol is a typically Abrahamic word, and it means literally false god. Okay, sacred image or deity is still an English word, but it doesn't contain any negative semantic luggage. It doesn't have any bad meaning. So this is not a matter of English versus Sanskrit or Hindi. It's a matter of Abrahamic versus non-Abrahamic. In the same way, unfortunately, many Hindus talk about mythology when they are describing their own sacred stories or sacred meanings. So still, mythology is an English word, but there is another English word that is used for Abrahamic, the same thing in Abrahamic ideology, and this word is theology. So we have the mythology versus theology. So Abrahamics use the word mythology, which means false stories, as opposed to their idea of theology, which means the science of God. Okay. So, this is a problem. Both the word idol and the word myth originally had much better meanings before the Abrahamic revolution. They're both coming from ancient Greek. Idoleia means image. Idol comes from idolia, which means image. Idoleia is a plural. Then mythos, the original meaning of the word in ancient Greek refers to something archetypal, something that never was but always is. So that has nothing to do with history. It has to do with the reality, the ontological reality of the world, of things, of the power, of existence, of everything. And this actually is a definition of theology applied by Abrahamics to their own elaborations on all these issues, this subject. So is that clear until now?
Yes.
Excellent. So let's examine the word religion. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare. Religion, religare, religio. Okay, religio is that which that which connects. Religare means to connect. So religio is that which connects. So why Hinduism is not supposed to be a religion then? Because if religion in its original meaning simply means to connect, Hinduism is a religion because it connects the people of the same community. Means all Hindus are identify themselves as Hindus based on their Hinduness, which is a connection. And at the same time, there is also another level of meaning, which means to connect the individual to God, which is the same meaning of the word yoga. The Sanskrit word yoga literally means to connect. So yoga is the equivalent of religion. Religion means yoga. The problem is that the standard of religion that has been established in the global culture in the last 2000 years is the Abrahamic idea that a religion needs to have the priest, to have dogma, to have a church, to have whatever things that we associate, for example, to Christianity. This is because the meanings of these Western English words were inculcated in the Indian Hindu's mind through the academic system, by the colonial academic system, through the mission schools, which continue to thrive in India even 75 plus years after the independence, because wealthy Hindus still think it's a very good idea to send their children to mission schools. So there is this confusion between English medium schools and mission schools. This is why so many people in the Hindutva movement hate English. They want to replace English with Hindi. They think if we take something that is so typically English or Western and we just give it a Hindi name, it becomes Hindu, which is not a good idea. So that is why many people translate dharma with religion, but that is not accurate, because religion, the original meaning of religion as connection, says nothing about dharma. Dharma is not about connecting, but about supporting. The root of the Sanskrit word dharma is dhar, which means to support. So dharma is that which supports both the individual and the community, the collectiveness. God doesn't need to be supported because actually God is the support of everything. So religion and dharma are two different things. Now, we can say that there are dharmic religions and adharmic religions, which means there are religions that don't care about supporting anyone. They just want to connect people and connect the flock, the followers of that religion, to the entity that they worship. That's a religion. But they don't care about the universal eternal principles of Dharma, which are usually called Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means eternal Dharma. Sanatana means eternal. Eternal in the sense that it doesn't change when you change your body. It doesn't change when you change religion, affiliation, sectarianism. Even if you don't want to follow any religion, you can still follow Dharma. And because Dharma, and specifically Sanatana Dharma, is the eternal universal principles of natural ethics, which Abrahamic religions totally reject. So Abrahamic religions are adharmic religions, and Hinduism is supposed to be a dharmic religion, because it is based on Sanatana Dharma. What is this Sanatana Dharma? This is very well explained in Vedic Shastra, that the fundamental principles of Dharma are, for example, Satyam, truthfulness. Satyam is the basic principle of Dharma. Without truthfulness, without honesty, without sincerity, there can be no Dharma. There can be religion, but there can be no Dharma. Okay. So if one is sincere and honest and truthful, they can actually be able to see reality as it is. To see themselves as they are, reality as it is. So it will be, possible to apply the correct form of religion that is actually supporting and giving benefits both to the individual and the entire universal community. It is clear until now. Okay. Any questions?
Nothing till now.
Okay. So we can see the difference between religion and Dharma, especially Sanatana Dharma. Now, Sanatana Dharma, it is said eternal, Sanatana, because it is found eternally in the soul of each human being. We can say it's a spiritual DNA, and this is also called conscience or antaryami paramatma. This is Dharma. Dharma is God. God is Dharma. And the first principle of God is Satyam, Sat, which is true, which is really existent. So Satyam is the first principle of Dharma, Sanatana Dharma. So every human being, any human being that has not been brainwashed and conditioned by adharmic training and propaganda, will naturally be honest and sincere and truthful. Because everybody knows that doesn't matter from which culture we are coming, where we were born, in which religion or which community, which nation, which language. We know that telling lies is not good. We know that we need to be truthful, we need to be sincere, we need to be honest. And you go and find, people who are not particularly indoctrinated in other ideologies, normal people, regular people, ordinary people. If you ask them, is truthfulness good or bad? Then everybody will say it is good, because when we are truthful, we can have very good relationships with people, we can actually be able to cooperate, and we also have a good relationship with God, because we have to be sincere with God. We have to be honest with ourselves and with God. So, Satyam is a basic principle of Dharma. Now, in the Abrahamic ideologies, this is not approved. In fact, it is a sin to be truthful when God, their priest, whatever, say that we should not be truthful. So we find, for example, in Islam, this idea is called taqiyya. In Judaism, it's called kol nidre. In Christianity and post-Abrahamic ideologies, it is called propaganda. Now, propaganda is another Latin word, which is very interesting, because propaganda literally means that which should be made known, propagated, spread, which is the version that the power, established system of power, wants people to believe, which is usually not the truth. So propaganda is exactly the opposite of truth. Now, the original expression was propaganda fidei, which is what should be propagated or spread about the faith, which is a specific concept invented by early Roman Christianity. Now, Latin was the language spoken by the ancient Romans. Then it became the official language of Christianity, and it's still the official language of Catholicism and the Vatican. So Latin, studying Latin, is actually, I did it. I studied Latin and Greek in my very young years, and I find it is very interesting because these concepts are still very relevant in today's society. Okay, until now, any question, any observation?
Yeah, so on this truthfulness, when we discussed a similar instance we find in Mahabharata when Krishna asked Yudhishthira to.
No. I understand, yes. Now, you are referring to the story of the battlefield of Kurukshetra,
Yes,
when
yes.
Krishna told Yudhishthira to declare that Ashwatthama was dead. That is not it's not a propaganda to impose a false version of reality, but it is a higher application of the Dharma. Let's make an example. There is a question of potential, the highest potential. Now, let's say that you are sitting on your threshold, on your door, in front of your house. Then a little girl is coming, running, and very scared because a criminal is running after her and he wants to hurt her. Whatever he wants to do to her, we don't need to go into it, but definitely this is a bad man and he's trying to hurt the child and maybe kill her, we don't know. But definitely it's a bad man. So the little girl comes and she runs into your house and hides inside your house. Okay. Now, a few seconds later, the criminal comes also running and asks you if you have seen a little girl. Now, the dharma of truthfulness becomes the killer of the little girl, who is innocent. So the letter of the law becomes detrimental to the spirit of the law, because of course Dharma wants you to protect the girl. It is a very bad thing to, facilitate the criminal and hurt the innocent in general. So if you reply, no, I didn't see anyone, I didn't see the girl, you are still upholding Dharma. Now, being truthful doesn't mean being stupid, So, of course, we need to be truthful and honest, but we should not be foolish. Truthfulness is not. Truthfulness is not rigid dogma. It's a principle. So we need to apply it for the highest, for the best, the better benefit of all, to support the individual and the universal community. Let's make another example with the next principle of Dharma, which is Daya, compassion. Daya or Ahimsa. Ahimsa Parama Dharma. Okay, so Ahimsa or Daya, compassion, is another very big principle of Dharma. But sometimes you have to apply what is, could be interpreted as non-compassion to apply a higher form of compassion. Let's say, that a child has, a very bad stomach, like typhoid fever. Okay, this was made, an example that I heard before from gurus. So when a child has typhoid fever, he should not eat anything, because that will definitely make his state worse. Now the child is hungry, he wants to eat. What will your compassion tell you to do? You cannot give him food. He's not going to die because he's starving, He just wants food. You have to say no. Or let's make a more, an easier, more ordinary example. A child is crying and throwing a tantrum because he wants to play with knives or matches, or he wants to. Sometimes children throw tantrums for the most incredible things, because their fantasy, their mind is telling them they want to do something, which is very bad, very, dangerous. It's, that they don't know what they really want. So they're crying, and then you want to be compassionate and you let them do whatever they want. What will happen? Is that real compassion?
No.
Of course not. The real compassion is based on wisdom. In the same way, truthfulness is based on wisdom. We cannot be foolish and just stick to the letter of the law without understanding and appreciating the spirit or the real meaning, the deep meaning of the law. So the first principle of Dharma is Satyam. The second is Dayam or Ahimsa. So we see when you go to war, like Krishna, and Arjuna on the battlefield, Krishna was pushing Arjuna to fight. And Arjuna was saying, oh, I should be respectful, I should be compassionate, because I cannot, it is bad, it's against Dharma to kill one's own family. Krishna was saying, okay, usually, it's not good to kill your family, but in this particular situation, Arjuna has to protect the prajas because that is his higher duty. So he is on the battlefield Kurukshetra. He didn't want to fight. He had to go because Duryodhana challenged them and challenged the Pandavas and always tried to stop the Pandavas from performing their duty of protecting the prajas. And it was very clear that Duryodhana had no intention of thinking about the protection of the prajas because he was ready to throw everything into the war. He didn't care about all these people who were going to die. So Duryodhana could not remain the king because that would be the disaster for the prajas, this is the higher duty of the Kshatriyas. So Arjuna had the duty to protect the prajas and to respond to the challenge of Duryodhana and his ally. So whoever was siding with Duryodhana, he had to fight back. So this is not against compassion. It is different. People think that the war is always a war. No, of course not. A war is something that can also be thrown on you, and you have the right to defend yourself. The right to defend your family, your country, your prajas. This is not the same like the war that an aggressor is throwing on you because he wants to kill you and your people. That is called aggression. This idea remains also in the common sense. So we have in normal jurisprudence, the criminal law and civil rights. You have the right to self-defense. So if someone is attacking you with some lethal weapons and is practically going to kill you, you have the right to fight back in self-defense. So, when you actually kill your aggressor, you go to court and, the judge will say you're not guilty of murder because you killed in self-defense. So this is common sense, So we have satyam that should be applied with intelligence. Dayam or ahimsa, which should be applied with intelligence. Now, we don't see this in Abrahamic ideologies because satyam is considered a relative concept because whatever God says is satyam, is the truth, Even if God says that, through the Bible or the Quran or, these Abrahamic books, like for example that, says that women don't have a soul, that women are just an extension of the body of man. Okay. This is what God says, and for the Abrahamics, this is the highest truth. If the Abrahamic says that the Bible says that the world was created 3,000 years ago, then that is their truth. Whatever is real, whatever is, actual, it doesn't matter, because, whatever is written in their scriptures and said by their religious authorities is considered to be more powerful, more important than the truth. And this is why all Abrahamic ideologies have always persecuted science. Like from we have the famous Galileo, but he was just one of many, because at that time the church had a lot of power. So the church was saying that the sun is going around the earth, and Galileo was not convinced. He said, you see, I made a telescope, and it's clear that it's earth that's rotating around the sun and not the other way around. So they tortured him so much that he became blind and crippled. And, at some point he said, okay, you're right. It's the sun that is rotating around the earth, let me go. And then because he recanted, they let him go, but Galileo was not able to, get up from bed ever again. So, this is the idea of truth that the Abrahamics have. So, it's not the wise application of the use of truthfulness. It's like sometimes better you don't say anything. If the truth is going to create problems. And this is why also we have in Sanskrit the famous saying, Satyam bruyat priyam bruyat. Okay, we have to tell the truth, but we have to try to tell the truth in such a way that, will be accepted favorably. It will not bring bad reactions. Of course, there is a limit to that as well. This is the difference between the dharmic religions and adharmic religions, because the adharmic religions, the Abrahamic religions, have commandments and dogma. You have to do that, otherwise I will come for you. Hinduism, on the other side, and in general non-Abrahamic religions, are not giving commandments of orders, but they're giving principles. So, the principle of truthfulness and the principle of compassion need to be applied with wisdom, with intelligence, with sense of responsibility, which is something, again, that Abrahamic religions don't accept. In Abrahamic religions, the individual has no freedom, no responsibility, no sense of responsibility, has no choice. In Abrahamic religions, the individual has to obey. If he obeys, he is rewarded. If he doesn't obey, he is punished. That's it. There is no choice. There is no sense of responsibility. Which is why Hinduism is very different. So, we come back to the original point that Hinduism is a religion, but is not a religion in the Abrahamic sense. Because it's very different. It's a different religion. Now, why I want to support the idea, the definition that Hinduism is a religion? Because there is something in international legislation that is called freedom of religion. And if we say that Hinduism is not a religion, but it is a way of life, we are actually legally waiving all our rights to the freedom of religion. Because a way of life has no intrinsic right to exist as envisioned in international law, international rights. In the Charter of Human Rights, there is no mention of freedom of way of life. Because way of life could be anything. It could be, a highway robber. Oh, highway robber is a way of life. So, do you have the right to be a highway robber? No. So, the clever thing is that Abrahamic groups are calling their way of life religion, because it relates to their idea of God and their idea of religious community. While the Hindus are not using this instrument, this valuable, useful instrument, to protect their own rights. So Hindus are keep using the word idol, the word mythology, and lots of other points that are saying that everybody is a Hindu. No. If everybody was a Hindu, we would not be in this situation today. So, what is the meaning of being a Hindu? If you say everybody is a Hindu, it means that Hinduism has no meaning, because it is everything and the opposite of everything. So, what's the point? What's the meaning of something that is everything and the opposite of everything? There's no meaning. So we have to be careful. We have to learn a little strategy, because there is a difference between propaganda and strategy. Propaganda is basically something false, a version, a narrative that is invented, is fabricated to distract people from the actual reality, so that the people can be easily controlled and manipulated. Strategy is a different thing. Strategy is understanding the connection between cause and effect. So we should be very careful how to use the definitions. Okay, so Sanatana Dharma, we're talking about Sanatana Dharma, and as opposed to religion. We can say that Sanatana Dharma is the natural religion of all human beings, who have not been conditioned otherwise, and have ended up identifying in a different way. So this is a very important clarification, because of course Sanatana Dharma is the natural religion for all human beings, but in their original natural state of consciousness, not against their own identification, their own practices, their own beliefs. And this is Sanatana Dharma. Now, another confusion is that people often use the term Sanatana Dharma as an exact synonym for Hinduism. Now, Hinduism is not Sanatana Dharma, and Sanatana Dharma is not Hinduism. Sanatana Dharma is something that everyone will feel deep down in their heart. Hinduism is a corpus of traditional religious beliefs and practices that are supposed to be compatible fully compatible with Sanatana Dharma and built on Sanatana Dharma. But sometimes there has been some distortion during history due to the phenomenon that we call Laukika Shraddha. So Laukika Shraddha is a term, Sanskrit term, that can be translated as popular belief or even superstition. Now, lots of people believe stuff that are actually not there in the teachings of the Shastra and the scriptures and the genuine acharyas and teachers. So this is why Hinduism needs to be better defined. Until today, it's a very general idea of what Hindu is. As I said before, some people even say everybody is a Hindu. No. Because if you tell that to an Islamist, you're not going to find that he agrees with that. Islamist or, a fundamentalist Christian or a Khalistani or even a Buddhist. They don't agree. They don't agree with the idea that they are Hindus. So, if they don't identify as Hindus, can they be considered Hindus? That's not very practical. That's not going to be very useful. So, the general mentality, especially in Kali Yuga, that is based on bodily identification with the gross material body, has dragged the concept of religion with the concept of race. So, like, for example, very often Islamists accuse of, racism, call out for racism if someone doesn't agree with the doctrines of behaviors, practices of Islam. So, Islam is not a race. Religion is not a race. If we think that religion is a race, we'll have very bad surprises, especially if we try to actually follow the idea, and while the other people who are using that idea in their advantage don't believe it, don't practice, but they use it against us. That's going to be bad, because, as I said before, like if you go and see in Islam, they have all races. There's no difference. You'll find Muslims of all colors. You'll find Christians of all colors. You'll find Jews of all colors. And in fact, 99% of Jews today are not of Semitic race, they are Caucasian race, because they are the descendants of the Khazars, who are today called Ashkenazi. So they're Caucasian, they're not Semitic. So there's a lot of confusion. Of course, we have to be very careful, because the post-Abrahamic mentality is very strongly established through the global culture and academic background. But Hinduism is supposed to be based on the concept that we are Atman, Brahman. So the identification with the gross material body is a root of all ignorance. So if we want to define Hinduism better, I think we should start from the ABC, from the Bhagavad Gita. And the first teaching of Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are not the body, you are the Atman. The body is just the dress. You take birth and you die, but what takes birth and dies is the body, is not the soul. The Atman is the same. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hasini Chaiva Sopaticha Pandita Sabhalakshina. Why the Pandita see no difference in the Atman, in the Brahmana, the cow, the elephant, the dog, and whatever? Because the Atman is the Atman. Now people will be judged, should be judged from their actions. As the other saying goes, palayam parichiyate. And they should be judged by their training. Janmana jayate shudra. If people don't get any training, they're just on the level of shudra. By birth, they're just on the level of shudra. If they study, they become vipra. If they take the samskaras, they become dvija. And if they realize Brahman, Atman Brahman, if they actually live on that Brahma Bhuta, they're called Brahmana. So this is what Hinduism should be defined as. Now another idea that is often confused with Hinduism is the Varna-shrama system. The Varna-shrama dharma is a very important system that ensures the perfect conditions for the progress and the support of the individual and the community. Of course, the Varna-shrama dharma needs to be applied properly. We need to know what the Varna-shrama is, and we need to apply it sincerely, seriously. Now, the Varnas, Krishna explains in Gita, are based on guna karma vibhagasa. They are distinguished by their guna, qualities, personal, individual qualities, and karma means activities, training, duties, way of livelihood, way of life, or whatever you want to call it. So the Varna-shrama system, this is something that we need to study very carefully, and there could be there could be people who don't follow the Varna-shrama and still they are Hindus. And there will be people who don't follow the Varna-shrama and they're not Hindus, who can still be called Sanatana Dharmis, because they are following the basic, fundamental, eternal, universal principles of natural ethics. So, for example, lots of ancient religions, ancient cultures were Sanatana Dharma. Buddhism is Sanatana Dharma, but it's not Hinduism, and it's definitely not Varna-shrama Dharma. So Buddhism and Jainism are not following the Varna-shrama, and they're not Hindu. You go to the Buddhist and you tell him you're a Hindu, he get angry. Because if he wanted to be a Hindu, he would be a Hindu, not a Buddhist. But still, they're talking about Dharma, they're talking about Satyam, they're talking about the same things that Hinduism and the Varna-shrama Dharma teach about Sanatana Dharma. Is that clear?
Yes.
Any more questions, objections, elaborations?
No, I think it is clear only.
It's a big package.
Yeah. But what I feel is, should we indulge our time in understanding Abrahamic and instead focus on our own things, or Like this comparative study,
This is a
is it
very
necessary?
good question. This is a very good question. You see, um, the we need to understand what is not. Like you must have heard the idea that the analysis of the Shastra, the reality, the Upanishad, starts the Vedanta Sutra starts with an 1880. The Upanishads say it is not this, it is not that. Because we need to have comparison terms to actually understand. If you don't know the darkness, if you have no idea what the darkness is, it's difficult to really appreciate the light.
Mm-hmm.
So, the point is to understand what exactly Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, or Varnashrama is. You need to compare it with what people think it is normal. And as I said in the beginning, because this Abrahamic and post-Abrahamic mentality has been vastly enforced, inculcated in the global culture as the norm, the normality. We get confused. We get confused. So we take the global concept that is Abrahamic based, and we just stick the face of Krishna on it, and we ask, like today someone on Quora was asking, and he had an Indian name, a Hindu name. So he was asking, he said, "Oh, I was surprised that in the Kashi Vishwanath temple they celebrated Krishna Janmashtami. Why the devotees of Shiva are celebrating a Vaishnava festival? What? Why shouldn't they? This is a typically Abrahamic idea. That if we want to please our God, we need to offend the God of others. That doesn't sound as Hindu to you?
Come again?
Yeah, okay. Some people have come to think that in order to be Vaishnavas, for example, they have to show this aspect to the demigods.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come? Where does this idea come from?
Yeah.
Oh, good. We got it. We got it. So, we should definitely know our tradition, our scriptures, especially, because if we go to verify in the scriptures, we find, if something is true or not. Because the Guru, Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, Paramatma is, the litmus test for whatever we are told, to understand if it's actually truth or it's lokika shraddha, like popular belief or even superstition. Because there are lots of things that people invent, and then they pass as Hinduism. Like, for example, this famous Bhavishya Purana. Bhavishya Purana was written in colonial times to please the British government, the British Raj, and to replace the Devi Bhagavata in the list of the 18 Puranas. They didn't like the Devi Bhagavata to be there. So they invented this Bhavishya Purana, which is totally fake. And in the same way, you know, lots of people invented things that, you know, are actually not in the Shastra, you know, because that is freedom. The good thing is in Hinduism there is a lot of freedom, which is very good actually. You know. But freedom should be used properly. You know, freedom doesn't mean that anyone can write a book and call it Shastra. We need to make a very clear distinction between Shruti, Smriti, and other words. You know, poetry or whatever, commentaries, whatever, because you know what people write could be true or could be a projection of their own mind. That doesn't make it true. Yeah. So this is why we need to be able to recognize where some ideas are coming from. You know, and we need to compare them with the basic principles of Dharma and Vidya.
Got you.
So this is, but of course, you know, not everyone has to do the same work. You know, as you know, in the Varnashrama Dharma, it's very nicely established, very nicely, you know, organized. So that people who have a stronger intellectual tendency, guna and karma, are supposed to have some particular duties that other people with different guna karma don't have. You know, but there are some basics that everybody should understand. That is called samanya dharma. Some basics, like, for example, as we were saying before, the Sanatana Dharma concepts of Satyam, Dayam, Saucham, and Tapas. They're things that everybody should understand and apply, you know, including the Shudras. So that we have different duties and different engagements for people according to their guna and karma, their way, you know, particular position in life, society, family, profession, and everything. So, for example, you have so many other duties. You don't need to study the Abrahamic scriptures and history. You don't need to. The problem is that lots of people who are very intellectually inclined, they invent their own ideas about what Abrahamics say, what Abrahamic ideologies are. So they go around and they invent their own ideas. Like, for example, one famous Hindutva writer, I remember I watched the presentation of his book on YouTube, and he was saying lots of weird stuff, like, you know, that no Christian knows what the Trinity is. Even the Pope cannot say what the Trinity is. Okay, which this is totally, you know, absurd, because there are, you know, it's very clearly, you find even in, you know, online, Wikipedia, it's common knowledge. You know, you find a lot of knowledge about that. So, you know, if people want to talk about something, they should get some information. If people are not interested to talk about Abrahamic religions, okay, you know, they don't need to know anything, because, you know, that's not something that we really need. We can just, you know, read the Bhagavad Gita and follow what, you know, very simply the Bhakti Marga is teaching us, and we'll be okay. The problem is that if we don't know what we're talking about, and we go around telling people that all religions are the same, all religions teach the same thing. That, of course, we got people who say, no, Hinduism is not a religion. And that's not the point. So we need to know, to understand, to see more clearly what is what. Otherwise we just embarrass ourselves and make our life more difficult and the life of the planet also more difficult. So as we can see, I've been watching now recently. There have been attacks on Hindus and Hindu temple, especially in Leicester in England.
Yeah.
And there's this Islamist guy who say, "Oh, the coward." I think that Arjun was writing. He passed me. He shared a video clip, and he says, "Oh, this guy said that if he is reborn, he would rather be reborn as a grasshopper than as a cowardly Hindu." He said, "Well, good idea. Why doesn't he get reborn as a grasshopper? We don't have any objection to that, But the problem is that these guys call Hindus cowards, and then when the Hindus fight back, they're terrorists, they're fascists, they're Nazi. So then that's it's a real problem. It's not that we can ignore that the Abrahamics exist. We cannot. And this Sadhguru guy, with this Dhyana Lingam he installed in his main center in India, is showing it has all the symbols of all the Abrahamic religions on the Shiva Lingam. Where did he get that stupid idea? Still everybody, oh yes, so secular. Okay, that's not being secular. That's being ignorant. Because you don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. So if they don't want to talk about it, okay, you just want to talk about Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, excellent. But if you say that Hinduism is not a religion, we have a problem there. You understand? So that was what I wanted to elaborate. Of course, we can and we should and we actually do, talk about the philosophy and theology of Shastra, Vedic knowledge, or what we can call Hinduism. Why not? We can definitely do that. Okay, and actually I thank you because you're giving me this opportunity, and I thank all the people who listen. So we can, we can increase the awareness so that we can become more effective and united and effective in protecting Dharma, which is very important in these days especially. It's always important, but this historical time is even more important because this is a time for a great change. So it depends on us how this change will be. If it will be for the better or for the worse. And you just have a look around. This is happening. This is the opportunity. But without the proper knowledge, without the proper strategy, without the proper cooperation, understanding, we are not going to get the same effect. So we are doing our best. Okay. Anything else?
No. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, and Jagannatha, we close here.